Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we will look into the Inspector tab, what are components, and also a few more things. So in the previous video, we talked about the transform tools. Now these transform tools have hotkeys. Now hotkeys are shortcuts to enable those tools. So if you press Q on your keyboard, you will activate the hand tool. When you press W, you are getting the position tool. E is for the rotate tool, R is for the scale tool, and T is for the transform tool. So you can swap between them without even clicking them. The second thing which I want to talk about is directional light. Directional light provides light to your scene. So if I delete it, you can see now it's a bit dark. You can again create it by going to create, light, directional light, and then it's back to normal. In the previous video, we talked about the hand tool. This tool is used to navigate through the scene, but the hand tool is not enough. We need to navigate a bit more further as well. So hold on Alt and now the cursor turns into an eye. Then hold down left mouse button and drag it, and now you can navigate and access more areas as well. Now an easier method to do is hold down the right mouse button and it's done. So combined with the hand tool, you can navigate through the scene a bit more easily. Now let us look at the Inspector tab. This tab contains all the properties and the components of the game object. Now I've already selected cube, and let's look at this text box. This text box is used to name your game object. So I will name it as box. So once I press enter, the name of the game object changes. This checkbox button is used to enable or disable the game object. So it will not be visible while you play your game when you disable it. A tag is a reference word which you can assign to one or more game objects. So if you have a player and it is controlled by the user, so you can tag it as player. Or if you have objects in your scene which you can collect, then you can tag them as collectibles. We can create a new tag by clicking on this list and clicking on add tag. Click on this plus sign and write a new tag name, which I will name it as collectible, and press enter. Now again click on box and click on this list, and you can now see collectible and you can assign it. We can remove it by again clicking on add tag, collectible, and then click on this minus sign. Okay, we can't remove this tag because it's being used by the box. So again we need to change the tag. Then let's go back again to add tag, click on collectible, click on minus sign. So it will be removed. Now let's look at layers. I would like to show how it works. So let's click on create and create another game object. Now this time we create sphere. Now let's give it a layer as water. Yes, it may not be water, but still, just for this example, I would like to assign it as water. Now you can see this layers list over here. Click on it and click on nothing. Now you can't see those game objects which we had created, even though they are enabled. Now let's click only on default. Now we can only see the cube but not the sphere, because the box is assigned the default layer. Now in the layers tag, let's click on water, and now we can see the sphere because the sphere was assigned the water layer. So layers are more of like transparent sheets which have certain game objects which we can enable or disable depending on which layer we want to see. Now let's look at the components. Now let's click on box, and firstly we will look at this transform component. Now what is this transform component? Now you can see this position, rotation and scale. Well, these are the values for the cube. So now the cube is located at -2.07 on the x, 0.09 at y, and -1.92 on the z. So this is the position of the cube, and same goes for the rotation and the scale. Now we can change the position, and let's click on 0, 0, 0. Now it's back to the origin. Now let's change the rotation as 0, 0, 0 and the scale as 1, 1, 1. Now we can't make the scale as 0 because then we will not be able to see the game object, because we can't have a length as 0, and so that's why we need to keep it as 1. So now it's back to the original cube which we had created. Now you see this tiny book. This is the Unity documentation for this component. So if you don't know any about the properties of this component, then you can click on this book and it will take you to the Unity website, and it will show what is this transform or what component it is and what properties it has. This gear tool will help us to reset. Now I will change it so you can see the effect. Now we can reset, so it will back to normal. We can as well as copy it, and let's paste it to our sphere. Paste component values. So you can see the sphere. Let me just change the position. So the sphere was inside the cube. Now, yes, we can do the paste component values for this as well. Now let's look at this mesh filter. Now mesh filter takes a mesh or the geometry or the blueprint and stores it in it. So, and this mesh filter is connected to this mesh renderer. And what the mesh renderer does, it takes the geometry from the mesh filter and shows it at the position of the transform. Now let me disable mesh renderer. Now you cannot see that white cube which we had before, because the mesh renderer creates or shows that cube with that color itself as well at that position. So I will enable it. Now you saw me clicking this checkbox, so it's the same as enabling and disabling the game object, only here it disables or enables the component. So if I remove this mesh filter, okay, we also have a remove component in this gear list, still it's gone because it does not have any mesh to create or to render it. So let me click on Ctrl Z and it's back to normal. Now you see this box collider. Now box collider is a very important tool or important component for a game object. Now a box collider, as the name says, that it will collide with other game objects. Now we will see it in action when we create another component, but just hold on for a while. I'll go into this in a bit more detail later. Now the last thing which we'll see is this default material. And yes, don't worry about these values and all. This may not be very important, but as we go ahead, we will get to know more about it. Like this is trigger, the material, center and size and all. We'll get to know about it a bit later. Now you see this material. Now this material defines the color of the game object. Now in the previous video, we had created this new material. Now albedo will give the color. So let's click on this white rectangle and let's give it a red color. Now you can see previously it was white, now it has turned to red, and this is the preview of what the color will look like. And let's close this. Click on box. Now let me just collapse it and then drag this new material to this inspector, and now the cube has turned red. You can also, let me undo it, and you can also assign the material by dragging it onto the box. So again it has turned red. Now the best part of it is that we can change it and view the changes of the color. So when we want to change the color, by clicking on this white rectangle beside the albedo, we can change the color of the cube or the material. It's not only about colors, we can also look at this metallic or how smooth it would be, and many more things like emission. So it will emit a bit more light. So it's getting a bit more mixed up. So this was material. Now we will not look into the other things, but these are the important things in material settings. Now let's look at this add component and click on it. Now see so many columns: mesh, effects, physics, physics 2D. We may not require all of them, but click on physics, rigid body. Now it adds a new component called rigid body. Now rigid body helps in adding physics to the game object. Now let me just remove and show you one thing. So I'll click on play, and the box as well as the sphere are floating in air. Now let us add that component, rigid body. So click on add component, physics, rigid body, or you can search in this by writing rigid body. There are two types, but we need rigid body only because this is a 3D object. We will require rigid body and not rigid body 2D. So click on rigid body and you'll see a variety of settings, but we are very interested in this use gravity. Now you might have guessed it what will happen. So let's click on play, and the cube falls down due to gravity, but the sphere does not, because it does not have that gravity setting. It does not have the rigid body component. So this was rigid body component. So you can play with it, and yes, we'll look into all these constraints and all in later videos, mass, drag and all. But this was the inspector tag, and this was the rigid body and all the components. So a component, you might have thought that a component is something which provides the properties or the attributes to the game object, and that's it. So that is components for a game object. Now let us look at this box collider in action. Now we already have this rigid body, so let us put this cube right over this sphere. Okay, so the cube is above the sphere. Now the cube will fall due to gravity. Now let's look at the effect of box collider. So it collided with it, and it fell down like a realistic object. Let me show it again. So the cube falls down, it collides with the sphere and falls down. So this was box collider in action along with rigid body. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we will start creating our own game, and also I will teach you about scripting with C# script. So we can create a C# script. There is no JavaScript in 2017 of Unity version. So it's just C# script, and I'll teach you C# scripting in Unity. So we will create our own game, and with whatever you have learned, it would be very easy to learn how to make games in Unity, and we will also touch a bit about animations. Scripting would always be there, and many more things. So please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until then, bye.